restaurant people are they we can find the workaround, and the way to survive. There's tough people in this business.
Spit that shit out, man! That's on flip script.
Today our guest is Darren Moore. Darren's a restaurateur in Southern California. Is it all in the San Diego area, Darren?
Yeah, we have 3 restaurants. One of them, which is a pizzeria, and then we have a couple bars around town that don't serve food. One is like a sort of your dive bar, and the other one would be sort of a more elevated cocktail bar. But
okay.
Yes.
And Marty and I wanted to talk to Darren today to get the perspective of someone who's in the restaurant business, and just talk to them a bit about the effects of COVID since March, the effects of the shutdowns, what they've seen with their feet on the ground there, and kind of their view of what's going on. So we appreciate you joining us, man.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Look forward to our call. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I think that would kind of be an understatement at this particular point. Yesterday we were talking to our staff for the second time to send them to the unemployment line, and I was like having an out of body experience, just saying, gosh, we're back here again, some 9 months in, back to the beginning. And it's been very difficult to run, operate, and own. I mean, profit's been out the window since the beginning of this. It's really about your people that you try to keep intact. But looking at the faces of the people that are going back to the unemployment line for a second time has just been one of the most challenging things for me personally, because of all the stuff that we've done over the last 2 decades in the restaurant, bar, and hospitality space, I think what makes me the most proud is our people, and then not being able to perform for them and get the blockade out of the way so they can go about their way of making money and being happy and healthy has just been really, really frustrating for me.
What kind of reaction did you get from them? Are they panicked? Are they resigned? Are they just like, I'm screwed? What are you seeing coming from them?
So what was different from round 2? The first one was a lot of tears, a lot of people scared. I think everyone now, for lack of a better reference to Pink Floyd, would be comfortably numb at this point. I think what I saw yesterday was, just some hollowed out people having just been, I think fatigue is really a proper word for what people are experiencing. Myself and our team and the people in our company certainly are feeling it, and you just see it bubbling up. What a year. I mean, 2020, talk about election years usually filled with excitement. And then we just have this, it was like nuclear event with protests, with hate. It's all over the place. And so people are just like punch drunk at this point. And I think, us in California, there's a lot of stuff moving on the legal side of things as it pertains to showing the data, which, is a whole separate conversation, or following the science, which is a whole separate conversation. But people are just trying to hold their breath at this particular point. I just feel it's been really disheartening just to watch an industry who's got service in their heart. That's what we kind of do. We're in to the people. We always say internally in our company that we're in the people business. We just serve food and drinks. But boy, you take a lot of nice, service in your heart type people, and you drag them through a 9-month ordeal. There's just a lot of broken spirits around. So I am hopeful that we are coming out of this maybe in the next, 45 to 60 days. We're back online with outdoor dining, barring some huge legal win.
Well, in California, I reckon that they'll get that squared away. I hope so. I worry about some of those, not just, well, obviously the business owners, but these employees. It seems like some of these benefits might be running out in California. But I mean, I think that federally, sooner or later, those people will get their act together and make sure that there's some relief. But I worry about that as well. I mean, have you heard your employees talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think So I came from an institutional investment background, believe it or not. So some backdrop on me, I went to school. I was an interdisciplinary humanities major, which what the heck are you going to do with that, right? So I came from a line of, my mom was a teacher and a librarian. My dad was the first person in his family to go to school. And when I first got into the restaurant business, it was based on my investment background. I'm not one of the people that came up doing the dishwasher thing, even though I've got sort of from top down to learn every aspect of the business. But when I first showed up on the scene and we put together our first, restaurant project, in the late 1990s, I was always, hey, let's get some benefit packages for the people. Let's sort of get a 401k. Let's do all this sort of stuff. And that was really sort of newer thinking, just because I came from that investment benefits background. But I was met really quickly with the, I guess I'll call it the youthful mindset, which was, hey, don't take our beer money. We don't have problems. We're tough as nails. We're young, and we could use the money in our pocket. And so what I'm kind of know happens in our industry is just people are living, they're younger, they're kind of out there doing it, and they don't have a big nest egg. And then with not having the additional stimulus check, I think the unemployment checks are lean, really lean. So I don't think you got a bunch of people that are sitting on, well, I know you don't have a bunch of people sitting on savings. And, our job is, we had in our meeting again yesterday referencing that, we just said, if you can come up with some ideas that will keep you busy and mentally engaged and not feeling locked down for, and just getting depressed, like bring them forward. We'll find a way to compensate you for the idea, and we'll make up work, because again, our biggest resource is our people. And without that it's impossible to operate restaurants without a team. It's a team sport.
Darren, what's the status of the outdoor dining and the because I know other parts of the country, they don't even have that option. But in California, with the good weather, especially in Southern Cal, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to me. It blows my mind that they're shutting down outdoor dining, especially when people have invested, like people like you and other restaurateurs that have invested so much in setting up outdoor spaces where they can keep running.
Yeah, I mean, so the status, I mean, it's the earth moving under your feet still. It sort of had settled down for a little while, but we're back to sort of the earth moving. And the status is that recently, I guess it was last week, the governor came out with this new plan that was going to be triggered by 15% capacity on the ICU bed side and clustered California counties into 5 regions. We tripped that on, I guess, Saturday morning, and which gave us a 48-hour notice to then be at midnight on Sunday going into no outdoor dining. And so I believe there's only Northern California at this particular moment that is not in the outdoor, or they are the only ones able to do outdoor dining. But I'd probably have to check to just verify that with you, because it's moving so quickly. With respect to outdoor dining in general, we just had a win yesterday with the California Restaurant Association, and I guess you would call him celebrity attorney Mark Garagos out of LA, who challenged Los Angeles County to proof up and show data that outdoor dining was a significant risk, and the county failed to do that. So with my understanding is Los Angeles gets to sort of come out of its outdoor dining bubble after the 3-week ban that was put in place by the county, but it'll still live under the pressure of the governor's stay at home, takeout only, delivery only ruling that will last, my bet is we're going to see it in front of the Christmas, and then he's just going to tack on a week to 10 days or whatever after that, based on the fact that people historically get together on New Year's, and they're going to want to keep that mixing to a minimum.
Well, I think I've heard the French Laundry is exempt from that. Is that still in effect?
So yeah. So I think it was one of those ones where we've been talking with a lot of my friends, and we were just like, why don't we just become, a franchise, and throw those signs up like I think the guy out of the Newport or Manhattan Beach did. But Yeah,
what sign did he throw up?
He put French Laundry patio eating or patio style, and that's happened. I've seen it happen a couple different places, and that's just another hard pill to swallow. It's been a real, I guess from a humanities, going back to referencing, I got involved in that because I like people, and the business that I've been in and coming out of the investments, I could have stayed in that. It wasn't as people driven as restaurants, and that was really kind of my love for moving in and staying in this space. But if you look at humanity right now, and specifically to do what I say, not as I do, boy, we're in a real interesting space. The French Laundry, I think the mayor of San Francisco went the following night to the French Laundry. Then you had someone out of LA, one of the, I think, a board of supervisors that voted no or voted to ban outdoor dining, and then immediately went to go dine
that same day
outdoors. Yeah, it's really, I think, besides fatigue, probably hypocrisy is one of those words that and unprecedented will be memorialized forever in 2020.
Yeah, Marty and I were talking a bit about that last week, about if you're making these tough decisions, you've got to be above board. And I'm sure all our listeners know, but in case some don't, the French Laundry reference is for Gavin Newsom, LA's mayor, was caught having a large gathering.
Gavin Newsom's, yeah, he's the governor of California.
Oh, yeah, sorry, the governor of California.
Former mayor of San Francisco.
Yes.
And was caught having a large gathering, a dining gathering, and at first he claimed it was outdoors. That's why it was safe. And then a photo came out with it being inside a very exclusive restaurant called the French Laundry, and he was having a dinner with lobbyists, which maybe it triggered the lobbyist exemption.
But then London Breed, the mayor of San Francisco, and the very next day, the same place. And I mean, I know I'm not going to belabor it because AJ and I talked about it a lot in the last episode, but it's like, I feel so bad because I want to laugh and make a joke about the French Laundry, but the hubris is so disgusting. And if I was a restaurant owner, I would be just livid.
Well, Darren, you mentioned to me the video about the Sherman Oaks restaurant bar owner who had she went viral because across the street from her was a production meal tents set up, but she was shut down. Her outdoor dining was shut down. And she's livid. She's not just livid. She's like heartbroken and in a similar situation as you, where she just came out of a restaurant from talking to her employees and is saying, look, they're telling me my outdoor patio is not safe, but right across the street is craft services for a movie set, which craft services is basically the meals that are served for any kind of filming production. And they set up in tents and they're sitting outside and tables and spaced just as she would be. But, those productions have been deemed essential services in California, mainly because the economy is so dependent on them in LA. And so if you're a restaurant owner and you see that, of course it seems unfair and it doesn't make sense.
They have shut us down. We cannot survive. Staff cannot survive. Look at this. Tell me that they're dangerous. But right next to me, as a slap in my face, that's safe. This is safe. 50 feet away. This is dangerous. Mayor Garcetti and Gavin Newsom is responsible for every single person that doesn't have unemployment, that does not have a job, and all the businesses that are going under. And we need your help. We need somebody to do something about this.
Well, you saw those pictures. They were like spitting images of each other, right? This is legal. This is not legal. And I hear more and more around the country that you've got cities, on one side of the river that are open and the other side that are closed. It's just
interesting.
And you had mentioned too, about a tough decision. I mean, let's be real. This is a tough decision. This is a tough, right? It's a new thing, and the decision making processes are not easy. It just, boy, I was watching that. I think it was SpaceX the other day where they landed. You know, we used to send the rocket ships up, jettison the first engine, and it would crash into the ocean. And now this thing is guided like onto a platform in the middle of the ocean, right? Full recovery, lands, total GPS, and in my head, I'm like, boy, we can't not only get voting, clean, but we also can't make a decision based on all this data and science that would make our decisions better, right? In a real-time hard decision deal. We should just, I don't know. I'm just flabbergasted to when I saw that video, going back to her for a second, I was just blown away. My brother actually works in Hollywood. He's a SAG member and he works in production, and they do have a more rigorous sort of COVID testing protocol, but like without the supporting data to close down all the outdoor dining, which has so far not been seen, I find it just to be like, where are we getting these policies? Where are we pulling the ideas on how we're going to manage the crisis and make decisions? Because from where I sit and I listen, I certainly have a lot to say when asked, but listening is, to me, one of the best tools that I possess. People are just, they don't get it, and they're expecting more, and they're not getting it, and it's sort of nuts,
I wonder if part of it is that we have the ability to make more fine-tuned decisions, say using a scalpel instead of using a shovel. But what that takes in conjunction with the ability is the courage by decision makers. And I think that's where you fall short is, and you have officials and politicians who don't want to be held responsible in the end for something bad happening. And so they're going to go above and beyond, and they're going to be sweeping when perhaps they don't need to be. But I think that they're afraid of taking that risk.
For sure. You had the other day on an economist who was talking about pay now or make someone pay later.
Yeah, that was actually a few months ago that he was on, but Anthony Davies, who we're hoping to get back on, but he was right. Yeah.
Yep. And so I think you're kind of right. Get into, if you're a politician, get into the sweet spot where you can do no wrong, and then you're sort of insulated. And I listen, decision making's not easy, and I think anyone that thinks that it is needs to get their head checked, but it has to be done. And sometimes decisions, like, you got to grab them and go. And to the scalpel, geez, like we're doing anything other than putting that to practice. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting this. I see a lot of doctors, our business. Some of them are in La Jolla. It's a nice neighborhood, and we see a lot of surgeons, a lot of doctors. And I've been really asking them, hey, how's in the front end of COVID shutdown in March? How you doing? What are you seeing? And what has come out of this is the joke now with the latest round of doctors that I was talking to is like, what science am I following? Because I want to follow, right? And what data am I supposed to be watching? Because I can't find it. And I find that to be really frustrating for people who are in a position running a company, one, but also their employees looking at them to translate the environment of which they're employed within. And it's been frustrating.
You're talking about the data and science surrounding outdoor dining in your industry.
Yeah. And I would just say in general, it's been this sort of, we're following the science. And I guess I would look at it this way. If you go to a doctor, you have a problem, I'll use my dad. He recently got diagnosed with like some cancer on the back of his ear. And so the first person was, we're going to cut that thing out. We might lose your ear. And he's like, well, I don't really want to have that happen. I'm going to go get a second opinion. And so he went and got a second opinion. The other doctor said, I think we should go about it this way. And we went and he's having great success. He's not going to lose his ear, and he doesn't have to be cut on. And I keep coming back to the miracle of the human body, the prehistoric like strength of a virus. Like we're going to have multiple opinions, AJ. And I think we talk like the discussion over opinions is now kind of gone. It's like you're either with me or against me. There's no room for debate anymore. And when you have these people talk about science or follow the data, like I'm not even sure what everyone's looking at to say this is the stuff we're following. It's just kind of a wasteland, because I think you can bend the numbers and the proverbial college entry class with lying with statistics. I mean, you can 100% increase from 1 to 2 feels a lot worse when you call it 100% increase. 1 to 2 in a benchmarking sort of perspective means not much. And I really wish we would have cooler hand leadership, like just all over the place, that would get people to be less frightened and realize that you gotta demonstrate courage, do everything you can in something like this, but to sit back and be scared to death that this is going to have a ripple effect just in people's psyche going forward for an unknown and undetermined amount of time.
Yeah, and I can definitely sense your frustration, Darren, about the science, and I would echo a lot of that. But I really will also go back to and echo something you said earlier, which is there's just no profiles in courage anywhere in our political landscape, much less in a crisis like this. And when we were talking to Anthony Davies, the economist you referenced earlier, we all agreed that, hey, look, we do have a virus here, but let's be sensible about this, and let's also consider the ramifications and the damage being done to real human beings with some of these, AJ says shovel, I say axe or sledgehammer approaches to our problems. I mean, I think it all comes back to leadership. The science is there, and there'll be different opinions on that, but leaders of good faith can take that and come up with sensible decisions. But like you mentioned earlier, again, it's become so binary that it's you're either with us or against us, and that's got to be extra frustrating if you're trying to run a business or a company at this point.
Yeah, and I think, Marty, you'd mentioned the word hubris, right? And I think when you lead, you're not going to be perfect, and there's going to be mistakes made. But I think the way that you deliver that, own it, and that's probably been, just to maybe tell you, I think as I analyze myself day in and day out of how I'm feeling and how I should go about my day, I think egos, hubris, and the inability for someone to like sincerely say, we're going to do our best and I don't have all the answers, or, hey, I screwed up, and really own it. And then going back to Newsom and even, not to slam on the Democrat side, because I think there's plenty of people to slam on both sides of the aisle, but the lack of sincerity for not following the rules that they're laying out, I think is really where the mistrust is just continued to be, amplified.
Darren, you mentioned, sorry guys, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just agreeing, AJ. Sorry about that, buddy.
You mentioned, Darren, something that made me think of, I think it's also worth mentioning the role of journalism in this messaging. Like you said, an increase from 1 to 2 is a 100% increase. But if you don't get those numbers behind the percentages, you don't get a full picture. And I think that's a big problem, not just with the reporting on this virus, but just in general in our journalistic culture now, is they'll give you text, but they won't give you context. And that used to be just the basics, right? You gave text and you gave context so that somebody could get a full picture. And I noticed in a lot of the stories about that ICU, that 15% ICU bed hard limit that was put on counties in California, there are a lot of stories and references to the number of ICU beds that are being taken up now by COVID patients, and those numbers are clearly higher than they should be. People are alarmed. People in the medical field are alarmed. But what you never get on the journalistic side in those stories is the context. They never tell you what, in a normal year in November, December, here's how many ICU beds would be full, and here's what they are now. All they tell you is what they are now, and you're left just to assume what normal would look like, and the human mind being what it is, more than 9 times out of 10, it's going to assume the most drastic numbers. It's going to catastrophize. And so I think, journalism's really dropping the ball as well. They're in a really easy way. Like, it's really easy to include context. And a lot of times I think they don't, because it's more salacious if they don't. It gets your emotions up more if they don't give you context.
I totally agree. You nailed it. I couldn't have said it better myself. And I would say and I don't know how you undo what I would call the editorializing of journalism right now. It's just so it's get people spinning and get them tuned back in. Heck, coming from an investment background, watching the front end of this, you would think you were watching CNBC and the market ticker when they were having the coronavirus, right? It was, everything was breaking news. Don't do this. And people were just pinned to the TV, and it was whoa. And I think if you study, or for me, I'm in the retail environment, so I get to see a lot of people, and I'm a big believer in sentiment. I don't know necessarily how the stock market is running like it runs when I see a lot of what I see right now, other than, free money and a lot of it out there. But there seems to be just I get to see people, and people are my business. And when I look at them, and you see just a change in that, I don't know how you break that cycle of journalism, because it's certainly not healthy to feed people anxiety, because people will consume it all day.
Right. It's healthy for the bottom line. It's healthy for the profit margin. That's what it's healthy for. It seems like I feel like in general, Marty, do you feel this way, that generally compared to at the beginning of this whole thing, everybody feels a little bit more calm and confident? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be a combination of that and just maybe I don't want to say apathy is not the right word, but they're just exhausted.
Well, you normalize anything also, right? I mean, even living in a POW camp, it can come to seem it's just your new normal.
Yeah, but as Darren was talking about, or sort of the premise of this episode is outdoor dining, but even indoor dining with a little extra space. If servers are wearing masks and even the government's giving money to help. Put that into remediation effects, even for people like my friend who's got a restaurant in central Pennsylvania. It's get HEPA filters, get ventilation as you're walking. There's so many things that if we could come together, that we could we could really, really blunt this thing and make it way more manageable, along with every other thing we're doing, like the therapeutics Darren was talking about. And
getting your immune system up, right? They haven't talked about that enough. Making sure you're taking enough vitamin D, vitamin C, quit boozing. Boozing compromises your immune system.
Whoa, wait a minute. I want to
we are in a pandemic. Remember that.
Darren, how does your, speaking of staff, how generally has your staff felt? When you open back up after the initial closure, were people really nervous? Were people thinking, did you hear, I need the money, but I don't want to die. I don't want to get COVID. What were the people working in the restaurants feeling, especially since, they could wear a mask the whole time, which is a pain, but okay, everybody can deal with it. But the people that they're serving eventually are going to have to take their masks off. Did they feel under threat?
I think at the beginning we had some of that. I think maybe other operators of restaurants had maybe more of a sensitive staff. We sort of, again, going back to curating a staff that is just, A's and wonderful. I think you saw a lot of people that have a cooler head than many, and I'm glad to be associated with them, because boy, they've needed to cool me out, just like I've needed to cool them out.
Right.
But I think the thought of the unknown, of course, I think we saw more of the the anxiety on our side was more people coming in from around the country, from sistering states, and not knowing our policy, and then not masking up, which was mandated for a long time for us in California, and specifically to our situation in San Diego, and the confrontation that would happen with trying to explain to someone to put on a mask, and then they feel the need to say okay or be an anti-masker or start to wax some political whatever on it, was probably the highest area of anxiety, more than the fear of the virus.
Interesting. So you guys had to deal with that, huh?
Oh gosh, it was I would say it this way, that there's a saying that goes back a long time, which I think you can sort of water down a little bit, that says the customer is like always right, which is kind of great if you look at it in a vacuum. But what we saw was customers coming in not being right at all, quite the opposite, and we're not going to stand for that. So there was plenty of arguments that broke out defending our staff, which was just really surprising for me, because I'm a positive guy. I expect people to do the right thing and always take the high ground whenever it is provided to them. And we just saw people going the other way and chewing on our staff due to the fact that they might have been frustrated from COVID, but we won't let that stand in our workplace. I mean, plenty of other people that we can serve that are, nice human beings. We don't need to put up with the minutia that someone's peddling and trying to grind our staff, which it won't be done.
Right.
And Darren, that really surprised me as this thing unfolded. I mean, you were obviously, and advice evolved as this virus revealed itself. So things are going to change. But I mean, I'm kind of curious. Were people that rolled up, do you think they were trying to make a political statement? Again, going back to the binary nature or the dearth of leadership we have in our political landscape. But were they just seriously surprised with looking at a sign saying, even having like a pile of cheap masks there, but it's like a sign saying, hey, look, state policy requires this, we appreciate your cooperation. Were they just surprised, or were they in there basically saying, F you, liberty, liberty for, or, give me liberty or give me death.
Don't tread on me.
Yeah, we've had it both ways. I would say you clearly can, well, I guess backing up for a second. So when people in the front end of this, when the masking was not like all the way ingrained, and I think we saw through the summer where masking was more or less on, let's call it 85, 90 is probably a closer number of everyone knowing that every time they entered an establishment, you had to have a mask on. That was mid-August. So I think the before that, there was, people that didn't know the rules. They walked up and we politely asked them to put a mask on, and they said, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm from so-and-so, or I didn't know. And absolutely, I understand. And our response was, listen, we just want to stay open, right? We need to stay open. We've got people with families that we need to do the business so they can take money home. And then you saw people that would come in, I mean, classic, and everyone in our business loves or hates Yelp or realizes it's sort of the cost of doing business is defending your online reputation. But we saw some people really take to Yelp that was, hey, we walked in, saw the place looked great, looked clean, looked awesome. And then someone asked us to put a mask on and we said no, and we left. And they proceeded to recruit people after I politely responded to the 1-star Yelp saying, listen, we're not happy about wearing the masks either. It's the price of doing business right now. Please understand. And rather than take it out on a business that's just trying to stay open so they can provide for the employees and provide an opportunity for people in our neighborhood to have a normal-ish experience, write your local congressman. And it proceeded to really, again, people behaving badly when they're supposed to be focusing on behaving at their best during times of stress turned into an all-out online war until Yelp finally stepped in and did the right thing and just got it all taken down.
Man.
So we've seen it all over the place. And I guess with that masking and just the general demeanor of which some guests, and not this is by no means every guest, and again, I think people are good. I've seen a lot of my employees cry a lot over 2020, and that's really hurts me, because my job is to make sure that they have the tools to succeed and provide opportunity and protect them. Because if I do that, then the businesses work great and everyone is a winner. And to have to stand to take bullets for them, do it every day, anytime, because they're worth it. But I think it's kind of horse manure that or people just taking indiscriminate shots at the people because they've got misplaced stress.
Well, even let's just say for the sake of this point that it's legitimate to think that the pandemic is something that's made up or that it's not as serious, it's just the flu. Even if you think that, to then attack an individual establishment and try to affect their business in a negative way because they're following the legal mandate. Like you said, attack the people that are making those decisions if you disagree with them. Attacking an individual business and trying to bury them with bad reviews, to what end? What do you imagine if you're doing that? What do you imagine you're accomplishing? Are they going to make you, Darren Moore, change your mind and now decide to break the law and stay open as long as you can while breaking the mask mandate? Like, have they even thought out what the point of what they're doing is? Or is it really just ugliness? It's just lashing out this, like, wanting to fling ugliness out into the world.
Great question. I would say that I don't know that a lot of people that don't know what it's like to make a hard decision, don't know what it's like to run a business, and there are those people out there, what their impact of sending 1-star reviews or ripping into an employee without reason. I don't know how they get to that sort of mindset. I guess I would say that it speaks to a bigger cultural thing for me, that we're just not doing what our mom and dad brought us up to do. We've lost our way when it comes to being sincere to your fellow person. We're sort of a shoot first, ask questions later.
Right. Well, sure. Because it's much easier to do something on Yelp than to go make a big sign and stand out in front of your establishment so that they have to stand there in person and look at you.
Yep.
I firmly believe that it's, lack of political leadership and also journalistic. I mean, our media, the way everything is just so binary politically and media wise. I mean, we've talked about The Social Dilemma, Netflix movie here before, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And I think that really, I think it summons our darker angels, to be honest, right now. And I think that manifests in more confrontations at restaurants like yours and other establishments. So people are just going there looking for a fight, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So how do you break that? How do you break that? Because I agree.
Boy, I don't know the answer to that question.
I think awareness, right? The first step is awareness. And Darren, if you haven't seen The Social Dilemma, you should check it out on Netflix. It's a good documentary. It's nothing that you don't already know, but they really compile it in a great way, and in a powerful way. But the first step is awareness. I know the difference between what you're getting as news and what I'm getting as news. Hell, just even between the three of us, if we all three do a Google search, coronavirus pandemic, we're all three going to get different results depending on
going to get some kind of a porn site. First off,
that's right. It's really the hottest new genre of porn, COVID porn. We're all going to get different results, and that's based on what pushes our buttons, each one of us. And so being aware of that, my wife, Mickey, just had an interesting, exchange with a very good friend of hers, her best friend from high school. They've kept in touch all these years. They talk regularly. And funny enough, I guess they've never talked politics, because a couple of weeks ago, the last time they were on the phone, the election came up, and they wound up in a heated, aggressive argument And then they kind of both pulled back and said, wait a minute, I know you're a good person. And why are we at each other like this? And, Mickey mentioned we're getting different news. We're getting different, being fed different news, being fed different results, search results. And then we're coming at each other like, how can you possibly believe this? And how can you possibly believe that? Well, it's because you're getting fed different things. That's not all of it, but it's a big part of it. So they actually made a pact where they're going to keep in regular contact and say, here's what I'm reading from, the more conservative sites I tend to like. What are you seeing from the news sources you tend to like? And so I'm interested to see how that hashes out. If I think for me, it would be a little bit challenging because I get into debate mode pretty naturally. And the whole point of that is not to debate, it's to share information, but I'm kind of proud of them for doing it. So that awareness, I think is the first step.
For sure. And it's interesting you brought, because it just like going through this and watching conversations such as, it's interesting. We have political divide. Now we have this sort of do what you're told. And then those that are challenging, right? Mm-hmm. The sort of challenging the directive.
Yeah.
And I think those are all healthy. Debate is healthy, right? I think you sort of hammer on, the 10th man rule, you hammer on stuff until it becomes stronger. But to the point, and good on them for coming back together and realizing that they love each other and things such as politics and one's conservative or liberal view isn't what got you to come together. It's the love for each other, and those shouldn't pull you apart. But I've seen families, like, they haven't talked to my brother since the beginning of this because he's a germaphobe, and we get in an argument all the time. And hearing those stories, because again, we're in the retail business, we engage our guests and we hear all this feedback. It's crazy how people have let this run them away from someone that they love.
Yeah,
I've seen that more than a couple times.
Yeah, and Darren, I got to say, I don't want to say I'm a germaphobe. AJ may have a different optic on this. I consider myself germ aware. But eating outside, 6 or 8 feet apart, it does not scare me. It really doesn't for this thing. But back to what we were talking about, awareness. Also, I think we need to be aware about letting the fringes speak for us. Like, again, it goes back to the whole binary nature of everything. Like, you can believe, some conspiracies happen, right? Conspiracy, you look at the definition of the word, is people coming together to further some agenda. So, you can believe that, there might be some kind of conspiracy going on without believing that Democrats are eating babies and doing satanic worship sessions in a pizza parlor in D.C. So
it's actually a Chinese restaurant.
The fringes are speaking for us. And then, dovetailing into the binary nature of everything, it's almost like, if I say something that someone might traditionally think is conservative, then all of a sudden I start getting piled on. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, I don't believe that. And then, but if I say something that's considered traditionally maybe progressive, then I get piled on by conservatives saying, oh, you blah, blah. I'm like, wait a minute. Let's take these things case by case. Let's talk about what we're talking about and not let the fringes on social media speak for good people of good faith that maybe have disagreements but can come together and can figure out some sensible solutions.
What makes me feel good though is the stories that you shared of people walking into your place without a mask, and it's just an honest mistake. They happen to live somewhere where they're not required, and they, judge that how you will. It's not a part of their daily life. And now they're visiting San Diego and they walk into your place. And when you ask them to, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. We're from somewhere else. Yeah, of course we'll wear a mask. Like, that's the human response. That's the great response. I went into the grocery store a couple of weeks ago, and I'm walking through and I noticed this lady gave me a really dirty look as I'm walking down the aisle. And I kind of heard her mumble, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm thinking, I'm thinking to myself, what's that bitch's problem? Yeah, good luck to her husband. I'm just kind of like bad mouthing her mentally the rest of the time in the restaurant. And then in the grocery store, and then I pay and I get back out to the car and I sit down and see myself in the rearview mirror. And I forgot to put a fucking mask on. And nobody told me on the way in. Nobody said anything to me, but I looked like the typical arrogant white male who's probably a Trumpster and just got finished reading OAN and doesn't believe in the plandemic and fuck it, I'm not going to wear a mask, don't tread on me, when really I was just clueless for a minute, and my mind was somewhere else. And I'm there motherfucking that woman mentally because she looked at me like I was an asshole.
Yeah, well, I think it's not like putting it's not like putting your underpants on in the morning, right? If you're commando or not, and the mask is just not ingrained.
Right.
And so there is honest mistakes. And I think everyone, in this asymptomatic, the last thing I was reading is maybe 1 out of 5 people asymptomatic, terribly hard to control that. Yeah. But I think everyone, the real good people have adopted the mask out of care for their fellow human being, and they should.
That's it. It's the polite, it's the considerate, choice. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So what's the next month look like for you? You guys are completely shut down, right?
Yeah. Well, we are doing, so our business models aren't QSR, quick service models. They're restaurants, and a lot of our business comes from creating a vibe where we have a bar and people are hanging out. And so we would always say, we want you to eat and have a couple of beers. We don't want to just serve you something and send you away. We want a chance to build a real relationship with you and have you come back. And so we are forced, like we were at the beginning of COVID, to engineer our next moves. We are doing meal kits. We started yesterday for a meal kit. So we do Taco Tuesday, which is a family style pickup, and we try to enroll.
Is that like at a particular establishment?
So that's at Shore Rider in La Jolla Shores, and we're going to be looking to do a Christmas helper kit because at Cove House is another property that we have in La Jolla where we would do some Christmas sides and all that, and we're rolling our pizzeria Del Mama into just trying to. Our job is to make people happy and get them to come back. We're going to support it always with good food and drinks and people, because that's what the environment we live in. And I'm not going to live in anything that just flat out sucks. I'm not going to be around people that are angry. I'm going to trade you out for a positive person. Yeah. And if you're around the restaurant business, which it's required to be successful, it will eat all the hours that you have in your day. You got to have good food and drinks around you. So our job is to make you happy. And so as we look out to the next, 30 days, gosh, I summarized it the other day when an insurance person called me and said, well, what do you think your sales will be like over this next period? And I said, well, can you give me about 15 minutes because I got to go hook my crystal ball up to a car battery. Yeah. It takes me just a few minutes to get that thing. So it's telling me the future. And so what I see right now, 2 days into the 3-week shutdown, as I see this thing not ending before the end of the year, I think it will quickly get kicked into the beginning of the year based on it's the perception that people need to be told to stay home because they're not responsible enough or mindful enough to work with the tools they have, wash your hands, wear a mask, stay 6 feet, and they want to force the people to be more mindful about staying away from mixing in their families. So I see it coming into the beginning of January. As far as the business environment is concerned, I think some of the properties that we have may just turn off. We might just turn them off. We'll have to see how it goes. And the others that can continue to lever their neighborhood surroundings or what they've done previously, or the food that you make inside the establishment. Obviously, we want good quality food to travel to you. And if it's going via to go, we all know that French fries more or less, for the most part, suck when they arrive coming to go. They're soggy. And so there's a lot of factors that are in that. I would say that we have always wanted to look ahead and try to plot. I think it forces you to look really on a day in and day out basis in many respects. So I would say we will only see what this looks like as people sort of trickle out after the lockdown of 1 week goes by. It's pretty fresh for us in San Diego. Our property, Shore Rider and Domama, sit right next to a very big beach, and you're supposed to, in the stay-at-home order, also supposed to go out and be active. So that's a little bit of a contradiction there for me, but I certainly applaud the physical activity that is really, really important for body and for mind. But if there's no people out, then our universe to sell to is pretty small. And therefore, we may have to change our tactics, multiple times before we come out of this latest government or the California shutdown.
Right. And when that shutdown's lifted, hopefully, like you said, in early January, then your employees will basically come pouring back, like, right? They're like, let's get back to work.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the message that we're always there for the people that want to work with us, that are great people. We want to work with them. I don't need 5 days a week from someone. I just want A+ work when you're with me, and I'll give you the same. I think if you look at when this thing ends, my feeling, coming back to just the overarching outdoor dining, I feel that they will be unable to substantiate. That's what I see at this time, subject to coronavirus mulligan thought, but that the outdoor dining will come back into the fold. Yeah. I think that'll come back from the economic pressure that continues to build and the lack of data support why it was closed.
Yeah.
AJ and I are going to have to come down there.
I was just saying that, man. I hope that you guys, we want to be respectful of your time here, Darren. We appreciate you joining us. And I hope you guys come out of this okay. I hope it's short-lived, this shutdown, and that you get outdoor dining back ASAP. And yeah, man, Marty and I would love to go down and have a beer and meet you face to face and just, see you guys thriving, you guys and everyone else in that business. Really, the restaurant business is the one I think of the most when I think of all these shutdowns. You guys aren't the only ones affected, but I just feel like you're so vulnerable, and the people that work for you are so vulnerable to this shutdown that it's man, I wish I could make it go away.
Yeah, no, but that's you hit it on the head. And I think restaurant people we can find the workaround, and the way to survive. There's tough people in this business, but it is hard when the rules keep changing, and coming back to a lot of people investing. We invested heavily to go outside, and just sort of the moving goalposts that everyone likes to speak about is hard to manage too. Coming back to the polarization of, this side or that side of the political aisle. I mean, I'm thankful we live in the United States for so many reasons. We're not perfect. We all know this and can recognize that. I don't think the system needs to get burned down, but boy, oh boy, what other government would be able to emergency push out PPP, which we got some EIDL, which is the emergency loan package through the SBA. So we are in a better position than many, but thank goodness that, Uncle Sam was in a position to do that, because I don't think that's normal for every country around the world that's suffering from COVID.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, if we just compare the Western world, again, I don't have boots on the ground, so I can't say what other places have or haven't done. There seems to be a little bit more guarantee of trying to make up for wages in some other countries versus a one-time payment. So that's, it's hard to compare as well, though, because we are huge. The population's huge. It just gets more complicated. But, I'm grateful for what they've done. And hopefully they can think outside the box and do more to keep you guys surviving.
Do you have? So I've been trying to think about that. I was just curious if you guys had a take on it in the second wave, which I think will be stimulus will be forthcoming, how you bring that forward, because they really haven't even started calling in PPP, V1 yet. It's sort of still not every bank has got the forgiveness aspect of it done, nor that they ask you to report for forgiveness if they're going to come in and bring this measure, which I think is overdue. But if they're going to bring it within the next 30 days, I'm just curious the instrument of how they are going to lay it down over the multiple plans and programs that are already out there. It's going to be interesting how that goes down. And I've been trying to think about how they would engineer the deployment of more funds, and I'm not quite seeing it. I was curious if you guys saw it.
Yeah, no, it's just politics again. It looks like they're going to come in with a strong down payment in December, and then we'll see afterwards what they're going to what they'll come out with. But as far as executing on that, man, it just seems like it might be, it might be tricky. I mean, I know small businesses almost feel like they need a team of lawyers to figure this stuff out, and but it's something, and let's just hope they,
get it together. Yeah.
And Darren, are you guys having to pay rent on your properties? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so good question. So we have five properties, and we've gotten some forgiveness on some. We've got some rent reduction on others. Others we've continued to pay full because we've been good or fortunate or hardworking, whatever. We get into deals that because I guess going back to the whole COVID risk reward, I mean, that's when I was in investments. It was risk and reward. So everyone goes at, our companies go at it with a risk reward. So we find properties that have sort of mitigated downside and good rent profiles, which I know many people that are in like Manhattan, you can't find that.
Yeah.
Right. So we've seen some landlords step to and help, which has been very wonderful, very thoughtful and accepted. There's others that have been a little bit more firm. One of my properties has offered nothing, but that's sort of more of a conglomerate, corporate beast than an individual landlord. And I think most of the landlords realize that they're not going to be able to trade up for any superior tenant at this particular time. I think I sort of feel that I fall in the camp of I'm the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And I've got 20 years running experience, and my track record is solid enough to say that you want me to be your tenant, because if you look at my track record, I will improve your property and be a tenant that you will like having. However, landlords have bills too. So I think if you have those open, honest dialogues, which we have had, and at the very beginning of COVID, I was talking to the landlords saying, hey, this is coming. This is what is feeling. This is what I'm getting from my resources. This looks likely as a possibility. And that type of approach has always served me well to step to and have conversations that sometimes aren't the most fun to have, but they always, those conversations oftentimes bear wonderful fruit when you're able to stand in front of someone, talk to them, rather than, diving behind a keyboard and being a keyboard warrior and sounding off, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. That's that, and I think that's a good way to close it out, man. I think that's the only approach is like there's no easy answers here, and there's going to be fallout, and so we all need to put our best foot forward, kind foot forward, brave foot forward, man. They can be the same foot.
For sure,
man. Thank you for giving us your time, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Enjoyed
it. Darren. Much appreciated. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure. And those beers, ice cold when you come down here.